Hey folks, in this super short video I'm going to show you how to make a survey for your students using Google Forms. This is something you would use to ask them for feedback, how they're doing with the course, which tools they use, how they're accessing their course material, or whatever else you may want to ask them. Google Forms is one of the tools that you have available to you through your Access apps. So here I am on a Google web page, and you can see my logged in user in the upper right. And if I click on the Google Apps icon, you can see I have my Drive, etc. And if I scroll down, I have Google Forms. So I can go ahead and click on that to get into the interface for Google Forms. I just want to note, if you're working primarily out of your Drive, which I sometimes do, I just jump into Drive. I can do a new, and then if I scroll down to more, in that drop-down menu, I have the option to go to Forms, so I can also get there through my Drive itself. So once I jump into Google Forms, I have the option to use some templates, or I can go ahead and start from a blank form. You can see some of my previous forms. So for example, I organized some training in Camtasia this spring. And so I used a form to ask people to kind of register for that. We've done drawings using Google Forms. We've done evaluations for professional development sessions using Google Forms. So it's a very flexible tool. You can use it as an assessment. In general, we're not using that because we're using assessment tools inside Moodle. To begin building a new form, I'm going to click on blank. And when my new untitled form loads, I'm going to be able to give it a title here. In the untitled form area, there's a space for a form description. And you can see that this form is automatically collecting email addresses for Alamance Community College users. Now, a brief word about the settings. If you look in the upper right, you can see a number of icons. Going from left to right, there's a customize theme icon, which lets you change the colors basically. There is a preview icon, which will let you see the form as it would look to someone using it from the web. And then there is a settings icon, which happens to be also a wheel, just like our Moodle update edit icon. When I open up the settings, you can see that I have some choices. I'm automatically going to collect email addresses. I could uncheck that if I did not want to collect the addresses. In general, you will, because that means that you get to know who responded regardless of whether or not the student inputs any information. You can also choose whether to restrict the form to users in the ACC ecosystem. And generally we do that because we're encouraging students to use their Access email addresses whenever they're communicating with instructors or with the school. This is also the place, if you see the word quizzes on the right, where I would enable the option to make this form a quiz if I were using it as an assessment. Let's go ahead and close our settings and build a question. Okay, so now I've added some information. I gave the form the title Midterm Feedback. I made the description, please let me know how you are doing. And then I added my first question, how are you accessing Moodle? And so here, because I'm teaching remotely or online, I want to know how my students are getting onto their Moodle page. So this is a multiple choice question. If you look on the right-hand side of this box that includes the information, it's multiple choice. I can click that drop down to change the type of question. If you're new to forms, I would recommend sticking with multiple choice until you feel comfortable with it. In the bottom right area of this question, I can make the question required. That will put a red asterisk next to it and force students to complete the question before they can submit. So I have my options of how are you accessing Moodle, computer, phone, and then I could also add another option, or I could add other. So in this case, I'm going to add other, and that lets students click on other and then type in how they're doing it. If I wanted to add another question, I would use these tools here on the right-hand side, add question, import questions, etc. So I'm going to click on this plus icon, which is add question. And here you can see, building from the beginning, I would type in my question text and enter my options. After I finished with my questions, I could, for example, preview the form, and I would see what it looks like. So I can see basically what I had before, but I have an annotation about what's required. I don't have any editing features, for example, and I do have the submit button, which the user would see. And then if I wanted to share this survey, I would click on send, and then I have some options. I could email, or I would probably use something like this. I would click on the icon to share a link. I would click on the shorten URL checkbox beneath that long link. I would click on copy on the right-hand side. And now that link is like any other URL or hyperlink that I would copy, and I would now go back into my Moodle course and drop that link either in a URL activity or in any text area where I can hyperlink text. If you have questions about using Google Forms or anything else, please reach out to us at distancelearning@alamantcc.edu.